What's up, Average Dad fans? Welcome back to another video, and today is the unboxing, first impressions and spec dump of the SONY Xperia 1 Mark 7. Yeah, I know it's a pain in the arse searching that on YouTube. What do you type? 1 Mark 7? 1 VII? 1 V7? Yeah, it's a pain. Sony need to change that. But unfortunately for Sony, the unboxing and the naming is the least of their worries. Let's go. So, as always, with all my videos, I will keep this as objective and honest as I possibly can. But, to be clear, this is a shocking unboxing experience for £1,400.
Holy shit! Oh my God!
Yes, that's how much this device would cost you if you bought direct from Sony or Amazon. However, if you import the phone through Average Dad Tech Store, you can pick this up for £300 to £350 cheaper than that. And it's a Sony, so it only comes in a global version. All the trademarks, Android 15 out the box, global ROM, no workarounds, much cheaper through the Average Dad Tech Store. Anyway, back to this unboxing. You get a cardboard sleeve. You get a recircled plastic cover, or fake plastic, whatever it is. It is recyclable, well done for saving the environment, Sony. Not that your sales are going to contribute anything towards global warming. Anyway, moving on. Inside the box you get the device itself. I have gone for the green variant. It comes in black and purple also. I told my supplier, send me a green or purple. Surprise me. They've sent me the green. I'll pop that to the side just now while I unbox the rest of the contents. There we go. That's the rest of the contents.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
No SIM ejection tool. No cable. No charging brick. That's it. Inside the box you get this manual, and I guess technically you get another bit of paper. You get this protective cover over the screen. So let's power this up and I'll give you an overview of the specifications you can expect to find on the SONY Xperia 1 Mark 7. Now, while this is getting itself set up, as mentioned, global version, let's talk about the display. It's a 6.5 inch, 120Hz, Full HD Plus resolution display. Yes, Sony removed the 4K displays last year and they're staying strong with only Full HD Plus. In fairness, you ain't really going to notice the difference between Quad HD and Full HD Plus. The more confusing and frustrating things with Sony displays isn't necessarily that they've moved to Full HD Plus. It's that the PPIs, the pixels per inch, are only 396. And the screen to body ratio is 86%. Now, to give you a comparison straight away with the Vivo X200 Ultra, this is a 6.8 inch 120Hz screen with a 95 or 94% screen to body ratio, because it doesn't have the bump at the top, the bezel at the bottom. It's a fully fledged Quad HD 120Hz behemoth. But we're not doing a comparison yet. Night and day. The one truly flagship element of the display is the protection. It is Corning's Gorilla Glass Victus 2, the latest and greatest. And yeah, unfortunately though, glass is still glass and it will break. Thanks for that line, Jerry. So, continuing with the specification dump. Inside you have Android 15, as mentioned, out the box. Based on essentially a stock Google experience. Sony doesn't really have their own operating system, they just use Android 15. It is also powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite chip. So it does have the Adreno 830 GPU. It is the fastest processor on the planet.
Wow!
And while we're talking about power and performance, I guess we should talk about the battery inside. It is, I'm glad to say, a 5000 milliamp hour battery. So you are going to get easily a day's use out of this. But unfortunately with Sony, there's always a but. 30 watts wired charging and 15 watts wireless charging. The Vivo X200 Ultra, which still isn't the fastest charging phone on the planet, will charge 3 times as fast wired and wirelessly. Yeah, disappointing again from Sony, but they do have wireless charging on deck, which I guess is a nice to have. Do you know one thing I will say while setting up this device, entering my passwords and all the other gubbins you have to do when setting up a new device? The haptics, yeah, I'm impressed. Like I am with the Vivo, like I am with the Oppo X8 Ultra, all modern 2025 flagship phones, the haptics seem to be really improved, like just really satisfying dunce. Let me just give you an example. Hopefully you heard that okay, but yeah, impressed with the haptics. So while this is transferring over all of the applications and data, let's have a look around the phone itself, because the Sony is slightly different when it comes to its buttons and design. The phone itself is the fairly squished, but not too squished, 19.5. Fucking Jesus. The phone itself is still the Sony trademark 19:5 ratio, which is slightly more squished than your traditional candy bar phones. Like I've got the Vivo here, I may as well show that. Slightly more squished, but nothing like a Z Fold 6 outer screen. It's definitely usable. There's no issues when it comes to that. Let me just accept all this. And then in terms of the back, it is a glass back, but it's kind of textured, so helps with grip. I mean, not too much, but there is definitely more friction there than your standard smooth. But then, as mentioned, the buttons on the side are different. On the Sony, you do still have your 2-stage shutter button. Small press will autofocus, push it right down, and you're going to take a picture. You can change that to video mode if you'd like as well. You then have your fingerprint sensor and power button or assistant button. Just above that, you've got your volume rockers. Now, I will say the volume rockers are perfectly positioned. The fingerprint sensor is perfectly positioned in the right orientation as well. Same can't be said for other manufacturers who for some reason love to put the volume rockers right at the top. So you have to do some hand gymnastics to use it. But on the Sony, very, very ideal button placement. Now on the other side of the device, nothing to see here, all fairly standard and smooth, but here is the first main exciting thing for a lot of people. Up with the microphone and the antenna, you get your 3.5mm headphone jack. This is one of the best selling features of a Sony flagship phone. Now when we move to the bottom, there's the USB-C port for that 30 watts wired charging, but along with the dual SIM, inside here you get expandable storage. And the good thing about the Sony is you don't really need a SIM ejection tool. However, you do need nails, and I tend not to have any, but you're just going to have to take my word for it. You can just pull this SIM tray out and add your both SIMs and up to 1 terabyte of expandable storage through a micro SD card. So in terms of look and feel and design, that's kind of your lot. Now let's just talk about the cameras and what I'm expecting to see from the One Mark 7. Now the main camera, the main 48 megapixel camera is nothing really to go ahead screaming from the rooftops. It is a fairly decent sized 1/1.3 inch sensor. It does have dual pixel autofocus with optical image stabilization. But other than that, Sony could probably do better when it comes to the sensors inside their main lenses. However, still flagship, and I've not tested them yet. So I'm going to reserve a lot of judgment based on just paper stats, because we all know that nowadays, especially, post-processing and AI is kind of the buzzwords for photo processing these days. Now, the ultra-wide, I actually really like this. Sony cameras, in my experience, have given some really good photos and videos. We know that. It's just the price tag they put on it is quite frustrating. However, sticking on topic, with 48 megapixel ultra-wide, it's fairly super ultra-wide. At 16mm, you get a really good wide range of view, and it's a 1/1.5 inch sensor, so one of the largest ultra-wide sensors out there. No, not as large as some of the Chinese flagships, but certainly larger than that of the iPhone or the Samsung or the Google Pixel. So I'm excited to use the camera setup for all three lenses, but the main talking point here has to be the telephoto lens here. This periscope zoom lens packs a real punch. It's only 12 megapixels, but it is a fairly decent size lens with an f3.5 aperture. Where things get slightly different with the Sony, and I'm just going to have to pull up the spec sheet here while I'm talking to you. It goes, from what I can see, from 85mm to 170mm. Now, what that means in kind of plain English is the way that this camera is set up with all its different tomfoolery, you don't have a set optical focal range. You actually get optical zoom anywhere from 3.5x all the way up to 7.1x. Yes, anything up to 7.1 times is continuous optical zoom. And still, to this day, Sony are the only ones offering this continuous zoom feature. Now, we know Sony partner with Zeiss and have done for many a year. Luckily, so do Vivo. So with the Sony having the T-Star coating as well, with it having the Zeiss post-processing, you can be damn sure that the photos this produces are fantastic. And the videos this will produce are going to be pretty epic too, because it has the versatility to go from 4K 24 frames per second all the way up to 4K 120, which we all know is great for slow motion videography. I personally tend to keep mine at 60 frames per second with this, which this also offers. But with all these lenses having that kind of 5-axis gyro, EIS and OIS, so electric and optical image stabilization, you're going to get some very stable video from this device. And since we're talking about cameras, I do just have to say the front-facing selfie camera does support 4K at 60 frames per second. Another good thing to see from Sony. Now that I've discussed all that, it seems like the phone is good to go. And again, there's no hiding it. That's a bezel, that's a bezel. But in terms of speed and snap, already I love this layout. So many phones default at 4:7. I love getting as many apps as possible in your app drawer, or moving these all onto the home screen. Now, again, just to reiterate, I did mention this already, but look at the speed of this. This is 120 Hz out of the box. There's no doubt in my mind that the default isn't 120 Hz. As mentioned, Google Discovery, because this is a global version. And look at that. Look at the speedy animation. Ready? Boop, boop, bing, boop, beep, boop, boop, boop. Really, really like it. Now, Sony's themselves have so many different features. Sony Pro Video, Sony Pro Photos, Sony this, Sony that. a lot to go into, but what I just want to do while I've got it here is just open up the camera with a long press, give it permission. Here we go. Here is the camera on the Sony with, as mentioned, let's just take that shot there. Let's look at it. So A, I need to clean my keyboard drastically, but B, yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. We will be doing a deep dive on the camera system and comparing it to the world's best camera system, the Vivo X200 Ultra, in a future video. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Now, I've given you my spec dump. I've shown you that it's global and it's very easy to set up. Told you all about the design. Now I want to know your thoughts. Are you one of those Sony lovers? Because there are a few out there. Are you the target audience for someone that wants to spend £1,400 on a phone that offers a lot, but isn't necessarily best in any singular category? Now, this is just my unboxing and kind of setup and spec dump. So I will come out with my first impressions. But I can tell you that setting up this phone, one area and one question I will get and I can answer now, no heat issues whatsoever. If anyone has owned a Sony Xperia phone in the past, you will know that setting up the phone is one of the most intensive things you can do, and these phones were bad for overheating. The One Mark 4 or One Mark 5, I believe, if you wanted to shoot 4K video for longer than like 7 minutes, phone would just die. It would just say, no, sorry Bob, not happening, I need to sleep now, and it would shut down. Luckily, the One Mark 6, and I assume this One Mark 7, doesn't have that issue, because they're clearly dissipating the heat better with the latest Snapdragon chip. So, that's my unboxing, kind of setup video, a few impressions and spec dump. Let me know in the comments what you want to know from my first impressions, and is the Vivo X200 Ultra the comparison you want to see, or is there another phone that I should compare with this bad boy? Let me know in the comments, and until next time,